and welcome to Harajuku Data Lake. My name is Morris, and this is Sergio, and today we are going to be I guess I shouldn't say this is Sergio because that's Sergio. Okay, take two. Hi, and welcome to Harajuku Data Lake. My name is Morris, and this week we're going to be talking a little bit about interviewing. So we're going to be talking mostly from our own personal experiences, so it will be a little bit subjective, but hopefully it'll be at least interesting to listen to. We're going to talk first about what it was like to be a candidate for a number of different companies, and then we're going to talk about our experience of interviewing candidates for our current and previous companies. So with that said, Sergio, so you've worked at, I think, 4 companies so far. What was the interview process like for those different companies?
Well, thank you, Maurice, and thank you to all the supporters who are subscribing to our channel.
Yes, thank you.
I would like to start talking about the average which is the common pattern for me in my experience for this kind of 4 companies. And the pattern is that all of them, I reach them through friends or in my kind of social network. So it means that I never apply to a recruiter for join to a job. These guys, they were my friend. They meet me in a talk. They meet me by another friend. We had experience before working together. Okay, so this is the kind of pattern. The kind of interviews that I have done as the candidate has been pretty easy because at the end, they knew about me. They had references. They had the kind of like, okay, we know that you have done this project. We have worked together, and well, they were searching this kind of candidate. So what it means is that I apply or I just started this kind of interview in places that I knew that I fit. So I have never applied to something like, oh, I don't know what is going to happen here. Or it's good. No, so I knew my weaknesses, and I applied to kind of jobs that it was the right moment. No, I tried. I didn't try, for example, to be a CTO when I didn't have enough experience, no? I didn't want to be more than, but I always wanted to grow a little bit, no? Or even to change the kind of, the friends, no? And to be in another company with other people, that, for example, sometimes I was, and this was important for me, I was searching a bigger team to know and learn more about these people. It was not everything about money at all. It was not about salary. It was more about to learn, to have a challenge, where this work was in a moment. No, so that was the most important for me as a kind of candidate. And later, another pattern that I really will give as an opinion and a recommendation for everybody who is listening. One of my things that I learned with the time is that when I did the interview, I was not really very picky. I was not picky with kind of the conditions or nothing at all. But of course, I value myself. It was, of course, it's common. But I think that I like to talk with them and with the kind of boss, leader, CTO, whatever. And I like to tell them that I would like to talk again in 6 months. So what they mean is that when I start working, I am not so picky. I want to see how I fit in the company. It's not that it must be something beneficial for both of us. It's not something personal. It's just business. And doing the business, sometimes, well, you don't fit in a company, or you fit very well and you discover that everybody else is very bad, really bad, and you deserve more, no? That you did in the interview. So I think that you have to be, you must understand that when you are negotiating, what it means is that right now we have these conditions. In the future, who knows? If the company grows, maybe you grow. If the company doesn't grow, maybe it doesn't, or it depends. So I really vouch for this.
So that's sort of a thing where you talk to people at a company, but you don't necessarily apply or intend to join immediately. Instead, you're making a connection to maybe talk again in 6 months.
Yeah, but no. What I mean is that in the moment that you join the company, in that moment you want to do this kind of later in 6 months revision, because you don't really know what you expect in the moment It's like everything I mean, it's not gonna be so accurate because you don't have enough information. What I mean is that as in an interview, you cannot really understand everything from the company because it's not when you are a candidate, you are also interviewing the company. It's not that they are interviewing to you. You are interviewing the company. And you want this kind of 3 months of training, but you want that both parties, they are dealing with each other. You are learning each other. It's not something that they just evaluate for me. They give me, okay, a number that is how much, and that's all. No. What it means is that this is like a dance. Both of you are dancing. So what I mean with the 6 months review is about after you join, you're going to say them, hey, in 6 months, I want to talk again and see what happened and how the company has grown. About what you mentioned right now, I will say that I have always been kind of passive I mean, I am open to new positions. I listen to, okay, what they want. But I mean, I am doing always kind of my own projects or with people to just to grow myself. I am not expecting a job offer from these jobs. I am not expecting nothing when I do a talk. I expect that the people, they learn from my talk, but not to have a new job offer. Or, well, I never have this case, okay, maybe in the future, who knows, but from the past, I just did what I liked. I had passion for what I did. So I think that the people, they're good recruiters, or the people that I found, they appreciate, this kind of behavior, like, oh, you love the computers, so I think you are a good fit in my company. That's it. At the end, another important thing is that you are lucky. You are lucky when you get good positions or when you are working with a good team. That kind of things. I think that's marvelous.
Of course. So actually, the 6 month thing, it's interesting. So you were talking about both you are interviewing for a company, but when you're interviewing for a company, the company is interviewing you, but you're also interviewing the company. And then once your contract actually starts, I know a lot of contracts in Japan, the first 3 months are sort of a trial period where, after 3 months, then you become a real permanent employee. But for the first 3 months, if they have to fire you, they will fire you. And sort of what you're doing is you're doing the exact same thing for companies. You're giving them 6 months and saying, okay, I'll give you guys 6 months to live up to the expectations I had about this job. And if you don't live up to it, well, I'm sorry, we're just going to have to move on from here.
Yeah, or well, in one of the companies, for example, in the 7th month, I left the company for another one. So that's what happens. It's not something dramatically. You don't have to do you have to always be very professional, always. But, well, you expect something, no? And I think that your boss, he used to be more experienced than you, and he should understand you, and he should care about you. He should listen to you. And when you are, I don't know how to say, but when you expect something, you really want something, and every day you lunch together, and you comment your kind of preoccupations, no, what you care about, and he cannot focus because he has so many things to do. Well, there is a moment that is like, okay, maybe I have other things to do. So, but it's not something like, or you have another reason. But what I mean is that, at least in my experience, it works very well. I never care about that. I have been in this kind of training process that you said before. I have been always, everybody is in this kind of, in 3 months is free to fire you. Okay, but I never, ever care about that. Right. If they want to fire you, they can fire you with 2 years, 3 years. I don't care. In this world of, at least I have been in all startups, okay, no big companies. In this world, it's very cheap to fire you, and even they don't have a reason, or I don't care. I'm not doing this because I am stable in my job, and no. I am in a job because I want to do something amazing in a short period of time, 2 years. If we are not reaching the goals, I think that I can be better in another company with my experience and knowledge, and make it grow, no? For example, in one of my companies, I developed the kind of backend, and at one moment I was kind of bored because I was just fixing, the problems, and for me it was not challenging anymore. And the platform was amazing. It was working, the very low latency, but I decided to move forward. Why? Because I was like, okay, guys, you trained me very well, but I need something else. I don't want to be here all my life. I had good conditions, everything, and I gave 2 months before I left the company, and I trained 2 new guys in that company, and I prepared the doc, and I left everything very well, because as I said, you have to be professional. But yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's definitely a different mentality from somebody who is intending to stay with one company for kind of the rest of their life, or the rest of their working life. And, maybe they will change jobs if something comes up, or if they're really unhappy, or if they're really not challenged after a few years. But for the most part, they intend to stay where they are, unless something comes up. Whereas you're more focused on moving. In a sense, it's like employment at will. Like you are doing these jobs because they're I mean, obviously they do come with a salary, but you want it's really important that something be interesting and challenging and sort of move you forward. And if it's just drudgery, if it's just really you'll just simply move on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wanted to. So the other thing, I mean, you mentioned being lucky, and I think both of us are definitely very, very lucky very, very lucky in that we do have a number of opportunities. And I think it'd be very annoying to somebody who's listening to us who, if you don't have history of working at a number of companies before, or maybe you're incredibly smart, but you haven't gotten into a good job yet, or you don't have a lot of things that indicate that you would be somebody that a company can hire, and you might just be struggling with putting out a lot of interviews and not really, right now, because both of us have jobs, it's very easy to talk about moving to a job that you like. Whereas if you're not in a job, it's much more difficult, and you're much more willing to accept pretty much anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's true. In the moment that you have a position and you have time for thinking where you want, where you go, analyze the market, it's about time. Later we will talk more about the kind of time, But right now you said a couple of things that I would like to describe, and okay. One is salary. Salary, I think that as candidate, you don't have to focus only what it means. Salary means more than money. Salary means it's like a formula about money, time, whatever you want. So I think it's important when you go to an interview and you know that these guys, they don't really, for example, have so much money, but they have other things. For example, you can be in a moment that you say, okay, I really believe in this company and I don't want a high salary, but I want shares, for example, or I don't want shares, but I want time. I'm going to work only 6 hours a day or 4 hours a day, but I'm going to have a good enough salary, So you are going to spend your time doing other things. That's important. I think that's important as a candidate and also later as an interviewer, but as the candidate, I think it's important to really want what you want. I mean, if you go and only is the money, there are some companies that they pay you very well, but the kind of job is going to be like after that is the death, okay? There is nothing else because nobody else is going to need you. For example, one example is if you want to work with COBOL, okay? The banks, they are still using old language. They need to maintain. That's fine, okay? I'm not saying that COBOL is bad. Or just understand the example. That, for example, COBOL has been used in the past, and the people that they have to maintain the system, they need to be very skilled, and they have a good salary. But if you want to move from that work, there are going to be very few companies who are asking about COBOL. But if you are, for example, a front-ender and you know the last of React.js, I'm sure that you have so many companies, okay? So in the moment that you get more stable, you are tired, okay? For that's something, and you're going to be well paid, but just don't try to go further. Okay. And the other one about to be lucky is also another formula. To be lucky means how you are, and you must have some requirements to be lucky. If you don't have the requirements, you're not going to be lucky. So I am lucky, you are lucky, because we are doing some kind of sacrifices. It's very easy to say, oh, I am lucky and I got the lottery and that's fine. No. We are lucky because we are searching this luck. We are pursuing the luck, and we are behind saying, okay, I know that this is the last technology, I'm going to learn in my free time. Or I know that I can improve my communications by learning this language, I'm going to do that. Okay, slowly, faster, it doesn't matter. But you are searching to be lucky. So we are lucky, but it has a lot of connotations. It's not, oh, you are lucky, that's it. We got this easily, because it was not easily at all.
Okay, well, let me talk briefly about some of the other experiences I've had as a candidate interviewing. So, as in a previous episode, we talked a little bit about our sort of work trajectories. And for me, it was much more of a journey to discover what I really wanted to do. And so as part of that journey, I really didn't have a strong sense of the types of jobs that I wanted to do, especially early on. So especially early on, I ended up relying more on not so much social connections, but actually going to career fairs. And for whatever reason, I do have to give a shout out to Tokyo Career Forum and Boston Career Forum, because between the two of those, I've gotten 3 different jobs. So I got my first job at a telecom at Tokyo Career Forum. I got my when I went back to school, I was working at the Apple Store in Ginza at the Genius Bar. And I got that job at Tokyo Career Forum. And after I graduated, I didn't get the job specifically, but I connected with Microsoft at Boston Career Forum. Okay, so I've had a few different interviewing experiences as well. I think probably one of the more interesting ones for listeners might be that when I was graduating from a master's program at a Japanese university in 2013, I attempted to go through the sort of new grad hiring system in Japan. So I'd already had maybe 4 or 5 years of work experience before I graduated, and I was attempting to go through the standard Japanese employment system, and it really did not work for me at all. And it was so funny because, I was getting... I would get eliminated at the stages that nobody should get eliminated.
Wow.
So just to give people a sense of what that's like, a typical new grad employment situation in Japan works such that maybe a year or more before you graduate, you're already going to these giant seminars with, hundreds or thousands of other people that are going to be applying for this company. And you go to seminar after seminar after seminar, and you get tons of packets, and then you do the application process, and the application process is online, and it has a bunch of different hoops to jump through. So there'll be things like a web test, where you answer a bunch of quiz questions online, and there'll be things like there'll be math questions, there'll be language questions, there'll be science questions. It's just sort of like a general aptitude test, or there'll be a hour-long personality assessment that you have to take online. But anyway, so after the web test, then there are a series of interviews. A first interview might be a group interview with 5 or 6 people. Then you'll have 2 or 3 or more interviews with individuals. So, in my case, a few of the more memorable experiences were getting eliminated at the web test stage because I actually... doing riddles in Japanese was, I'm pretty good at Japanese. I have my N1 certification, and I've been here pretty long, and I'm pretty fluent. But, when it came to these specific riddles in Japanese or specific types of reading comprehension, well, it's just, I'm not native level. I didn't go through the entire Japanese schooling system, so that was just not going to happen. The group interviews are also... There's very much a formula where good students know how to be charismatic and command the room and make the interviewers laugh and completely dominate a good group interview. After the group interview stage, I did, with one company, I got to Sanji Mensetsu, which was like the third level of interviews. And that was bizarre because at some point, I felt like I had done pretty well. I'd gotten through all these stages and I was up to the third stage. And then I had this manager who just said, well, why are you applying as a new grad? It was like, well, why can't I apply as a new grad? Like,
I got lost.
like I like what? I got this far. Can I like? Is it wrong to apply as a new? So anyway, ultimately I ended up interviewing with Microsoft at Boston Career Forum and had a much more had an experience where they understood me as a candidate much more than many of the other companies had. And they understood that my strengths were not having gone through the entire Japanese schooling system. And I think this is sort of a theme of some of the more successful interviews I've had, where often after an interview, if I feel like the interviewer understands who I am as a person and understands my background and my skills, that usually means the interview went really, really well. When I've had a less successful interview, I usually leave with the feeling that based on the questions that the interviewer asked me, they really didn't get a good sense of who I am, or they don't really understand what my skills are. So to give another example, at some of the big companies that I've interviewed at, there will be 1 or 2 days of interviews where you're just talking to 5 or 6 groups of people or 5 or 6 individuals in a row and talking to each person for 1 hour. And these groups are not connected, so they end up asking the same questions over and over and over again. And it's very superficial. So you end up giving these kind of, it's like, oh my God, is this the 5th time I'm going to have to tell this story? And it's sometimes you get better at telling the same story, but sometimes you get kind of tired of telling the same story and you skip over the details that make it an interesting, exciting story to tell. So that's some of my experience. So,
okay, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Well, I think it's so interesting that you have this experience that you can share with us. I think it's very good to know what happens in Japan. But I have 2 questions. One is that, well, as a new graduate, you are trying to apply to a job that is not going to be very kind of well paid and good salary and good condition, right? No? So you are trying the worst of the worst. And then a second one is, I listen, because I don't have this experience, but I listen that this kind of new graduates, they need to do this system because in the big companies, they spend the 3 first months. So we are talking about like kind of 3 months, just learning how to be kind of coherent with the company. I mean, that they have to know how the company is working. For example, how you apologize to the boss, how you apologize to the customers, when you have to arrive, how you have to arrive. You need to have the kind of suite for the occasion. You need to know who is taking the papers, to clean the room, to all of these tasks, no? Is it true?
Yeah, it's well, first, it's not 3 months. It's like 6 months or a year or more of training. So, and the other thing is that these large employers in Japan aren't hiring based on the skills that you come in with. They're hiring based on what they think is your aptitude to acquire skills. So this is how you can get people who have, you can have a degree in pretty much anything, but then you'll be trained as an engineer, you'll be trained as a programmer, you'll be trained as an accountant, and you'll get almost all of that training as on-the-job training. So that's why it's really important to have such a long training period.
I see. What I listen about is that the people that they go out of Todai University, for example, they used to have more opportunities to get higher positions because they just left from that university. And even he has a study, I don't care, any career over there, they can be trained to have another knowledge, because it's like, okay, we have a person who is smart. So with this smart person, we can reach these positions. And later, for example, there is also a connection with this kind of positions with the newspaper. And I think that in public positions, they are in the newspaper. So what means is that if you apply and, well, you got ascended in the category, you are going to be listed in the newspaper, and everybody's going to know that a guy from this university has been in this public position. So it's going to give kind of fame to the university. That's what I listen about. That is very important, no? Where you come from, and then what you are going to be trained off, and which is going to be your position later in the society.
Yeah, the universities definitely have very strong alumni networks, and they do the universities, of course, attempt to assist with hiring a lot. Although one thing that I said, in a sense, I am being a little bit critical of the idea of hiring people that, regardless of their academic background, and them attempting to train them into one specific field, but preparing for this podcast, I listened to a few other podcasts about the hiring process and read a few blog posts. And one of the things that came up consistently was that with engineers, we're not necessarily hiring for this specific technology that you happen to know at this time, because the technologies that companies will use are going to change over 2, 3, 5, 10 years. We do want people that are interested, not that we're not hiring purely based on the skills you have now, but also based on what we think is an aptitude to acquire new skills and move forward with new technologies.
I don't agree in some way. I don't agree, because I think that you have the experience about something. Right now in our company, this is kind of web company, and everything is very related. Everything is very related. Even we are in kind of computer science, everything is related. But imagine that I tell you that you are going to start working in kind of developing video games or doing embedded devices. You don't know where to start, or you are going to implement low-level algorithms. So, the computer science is something is huge. And right now we are focusing one kind of web technology, software developing, that is some language. So you write a code that is being compiled or understood in runtime for something. And this is kind of near concepts. But when we talk about all, is massive. So I agree with what you said about that. It is easy kind of, or we are all time evolving and changing the technologies, but it's the same like if you go to a doctor and you ask to the doctor, oh, but can you do an operation to me? And he said, no, I am a general doctor and I only know a little bit about everything, and then I reassign you to the doctor of the nose, the ear, whatever. So there are specialities, no? And in computer, it also happens. So there are sometimes that you can have the feeling like, oh, I know all this. Yeah, you can learn, of course. Everything can be learned, no? Everybody learn. But and right now we are young, okay? So it's easy to learn. But in the moment that you are 50s, 60s, I think that you know very well something, you do very well that, but you don't really want to be all the time dealing with problems. It's the same when you install an operative system and you don't want to recompile the kernel every day. You want to do
there's nothing wrong with Gentoo.
No, there is nothing. It's not only Gentoo, but it's more. But you know what I mean is that even right now in our company we can move departments. This is because they are similar.
Right, they're all related to this web technology stack. So yeah, I guess we are looking for not just a specific set of technologies and the ability to move forward, but those technologies are within the sphere of this web technology stack.
What I will say is that right now we are in a huge market, and this huge market means that you know all this of technology, and this kind of that could be small is huge. So you can move to so many companies, and so that's it. Not that the market is huge. Not that this field is kind of how can I say, small. So that's the idea for me. Yeah, the market.
The market of like within the web technology sphere.
Exactly.
It's a huge market.
Exactly. So even you change a little bit the technology, that's fine. It's because you can go to several companies that they want to hire you. There is another blog that one guy, he prepared and he spent like 33 hours just researching to get the best company. And he got, I think that he found 150 positions and he chose one of them. So what it means is that he had so many positions, so many companies. In these companies, they have different positions. Each one was completely different size. So what I mean is that there is a huge diversity. But when you are a doctor, for example, and you work in something very specific, you know about that. You don't really want to change the career. And you know that there are some hospitals that they do the same than you. But there is not this kind of terrible number of opportunities that we have now with the computer. Maybe one day there is not so many opportunities, and believe me that you will be very specific about something and only that. Because to be general is something that you need, because it's the kind of T that we do, to be horizontal and vertical. So you want to be a specialist of something, okay? That is going to be more worth for you than to know a little bit about everything and nothing at all. Because when you leave the kind of engineer degree, you know a little bit about everything, but you don't have experience. Everything is theoretic. So you want to focus. That's one of my recommendations.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tangent, but I think it's definitely, as a candidate, it's important both to have this a little bit of knowledge about the zeitgeist of computer engineering, but
Sure.
also to be very good at one thing. So
Sure.
it may not be that. So as opposed to attempting to be good at 10 different programming languages, be very, very good at one programming language or very, very good at one technology stack, but have general knowledge of all 10 programming languages.
I will reformulate, and I would like to say more about to be good in kind of software development. Because when we talk about language, as you said, the language can evolve, can change. It doesn't matter the language. What matters is the design. I need to know how it's going to be, and here I will put a cache. But I don't care if it is a memcache or a Redis cache, but I know that it's going to be a cache. Or for example, when I'm writing the kind of code, I know that this is going to be a inheritance, and this is going to be extend, this is compose, this kind of elements, these patterns, sometimes they are more important than say, oh, I'm going to write this in Go, Scala, or Elixir, and this is going to be faster, whatever. That's just a small detail of implementation, but what matters is really understand the concept itself, okay? But the concept, they change a lot if you are a kind of video game designer than if you are a software developer. That's the point.
Right. Yeah, when it comes to computer science fundamentals, I mean, this is why computer science, even though the technology has changed a huge amount in the last 5, 10, 20 years, if you have a computer science degree from the mid-90s, you certainly are learning the same concepts as if you had a computer science degree from 2017.
Yeah,
the language may be different, the implementation may be different, but the fundamental concepts have not changed that much.
Yeah, you are always going to start with the history of the language and everything to understand where it comes from. So, yeah, it's going to happen.
Okay, so now let's turn to our experiences as interviewers. So we're not confining this just to the current company that we work for, but just to give a brief overview of what the interview process at our company looks like, just for reference. We start with phone screens. We have a meeting with candidates. We have a pair programming session. We have a top grading interview, and we do reference checks. Those steps typically don't vary very much. Everybody has to go through the top grading interview. Everybody has to have references. For the development positions, everybody has to do pair programming. So, Sergio, you've done hiring for other companies as well. What have you sort of picked up as an interviewer about what's important?
Well, I think it's very important to say that when you go to a company, you find people that they are going to be better than you. And in that moment is when you have to learn, no? So as you said, in our current company, the founders, they came from a kind of recruiting company. They knew very well how to recruit people, and and the kind of more do this in a kind of diligent way, you know. In my previous experience, I got kind of had to interview and I got these opportunities, but I think that for me right now, I don't have this kind of feeling that they were so structured. I mean, it was like we base kind of everything by intuition. So I cannot say that I was good at doing that, or well, at the end, maybe I did the right thing in that moment, and I could by my intuition, but not because I have the methodology. Okay, I think that I could learn now, like, okay, what means more the steps for recruiting, and every time that I do a top grading, I try to listen a lot because I think that I have to continue learning. But I don't think that in my previous experience was so important. I can got some ideas, but it was just intuition. I think that we could be, I mean, I was not the most responsible, okay, of that interview. So I never highlight say, oh, I need someone, I'm gonna hire someone. In my cases, if I will have to hire someone, I'm sure that I will use my network. So I'm sure that I'm going to hire someone who I know that I have been working with him in the past, something like that. I'm not going to kind of spend time just going with something that I don't know what is going to happen. I'm going to work with people that I already work. So I think that's very valuable for a person, that he has a kind of network and he can call to these friends and say, hey, do you want to come to my company? So I think that's very important. But of course, not always is the case, no? But yeah, I think that I will do that about my near network instead of going, because the problem of all of this, okay, and I think that this is one of the big topics, is that the interviews are kind of time sensitive. What means time sensitive? It means that when you want to hire someone, you want this right now. You don't want to spend several months because you have something to do, no? So you are rushing to hire someone. And when you rush, something bad is going to happen. You're going to hire someone who doesn't really fit, or he has an attitude that it doesn't work very well. That's why I like a lot how we are working now and stop grading. That means that, okay, describe me everything you did in the past and tell me the best, the worst, how it went, what do you think about your team and the boss and what they think about you. And I like this because it's very intensive. In very short periods of time, you know a lot about this person, and you are evaluating the aptitude of this person, and you know if it fits. But as I said before, I think that it takes more than 3 hours. It takes maybe months. No, you have to see how he solved a problem and what is the opportunity that you gave to that person, because this is also important. No, it depends. If you put this person only to write code, this is what he's gonna show you. But if you tell him, okay, please do this project or do that, whatever, then you are fine in this. I think, for example, when you do the interview, and in our cases, in the last ones, for me was more important to, for example, to do something with that person. And I mean something like, I didn't try to solve the problem, no, the big problem. I wanted more like, okay, but more about kind of passion. Like, for example, did you research about our company? Do you understand something from outside about what is the kind of internal? The question must be related about what we are searching for. I don't want to ask about, we were joking before about the bubble short, no? So
bubble sort, yeah.
I don't want to ask something difficult or something that I could not even respond. No, if I am the candidate, I put in the skin of that person. So I want to make some kind of question that is like, okay, but what do you recommend me here, and what do you think that we have this like that? No, like if for example we were talking about the platform in the backend, I can ask about what do you think that we have the design here, how we split the API or microservice, what do you think that we use for communicate this to another technology, or you realize, no, the kind of things that the people they come out, no. For example, oh, you can use a queue, or you can use a cache, or you can have this replicated, or it can be Docker, it can be serverless. They just mention, no, you are not searching nothing else. But if they know what is a real problem, or it's like, oh, sorry, my company, we don't have this kind of amount of users, for example. So going back to what I was saying before, the kind of time, I think that is the worst enemy, no? That's why even you are in a position that you can hire more people, you have to take it easy. Because you know that if you rush to hire the right person, that is going to be bad. You need a team that you have to trust these guys. They are kind of top players, no, for your company. So you have to delegate in them. So later they are gonna be your guys. You have to believe that they are gonna do something right. And if they cannot, they are gonna ask you. But they are not gonna be liars. They're not gonna be I like to search for good people, good persons that I can really trust in them. So yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, so I mean, to go back to our process a little bit, I mean, one the things that I see that I think that we are doing pretty well at is that even though we're a small company with obviously time constraints and a need to bring on a lot of people, we do have a structure and we do have a process, and it's very methodical. So and kind of I think the challenge that a lot of companies deal with is how to make the hiring process less subjective and more objective. So of course, at any company, ultimately, you're hiring people to work on your team. So they do need to be people that are not just skilled with the technology, but are also able to work well with others. So that is a real, in some senses, that is kind of a subjective assessment. But by using this like 5-stage process and going through each of these stages in a regular manner and asking the same types of questions in each stage of every candidate and asking the same types of and having the same types of conversations in the pair programming with every candidate, it gives us much more, it makes it much easier to evaluate candidates not just on subjective intuition, but on an objective of how quickly did they get through this thing, or what did they bring up in the conversation, or what did they not bring up in the conversation, or where did they get stuck?
Yeah, I think that happens, but I think this happens in kind of the development teams, no, and the more kind of workers, no, of the company. I think that in some positions of the company, you have to break the rules. I think that all these rules. I think that even the top grading that we are doing is kind of customized top grading. The top grading
definitely is.
The rules of the top grading at the end is to discover, for example, in the aptitudes, some aptitudes they don't change of the person. I mean, if you are selfish, you are gonna change this in 3 months. But if you don't know a language, it can be changed in 1 month. That's the kind of goal that has the top grading to determine these skills that cannot change and these ones that can change. And then with these questions that they are making you, like, okay, how did you react in this situation? Okay, how are you reacting now after 5 years? Is the kind of evolution that you are searching, no? So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, top grading. There's a wonderful Wikipedia page about it that makes it sound truly awful. Sort of the customized version of top grading that we use. It's basically a detailed interview where we actually do a deep dive on what people have on their resume and their previous experience. So it's pretty easy to prepare for, in the sense that you need to be familiar with your own resume and your own experience. But it tends to be a very positive experience, I think, both for candidates and for the interviewers, in that the interviewers get to really understand what types of patterns reappear in a candidate's experience in the different jobs that they've held, and what their true interests, what their true aptitudes are, what they can talk with passion about, what they kind of gloss over. And for candidates, it also tends to be a very positive experience, because as you go through the process of discussing your resume and the previous positions you've held and the types of teams you've worked on and the types of projects you've done, in a sense, you get to understand yourself better. And through the process, you understand what the journey you've been on looks like, what your trajectory is. And sometimes it's like, oh, well, I should do more here, or that was an interesting experience, or I'm really glad I'm not doing that anymore.
I will say also that I think as when you are interviewing people, you learn a lot. You learn a lot.
Okay, I wanted to talk also briefly about the pair programming, because assessing engineers' talents in an interview is definitely something that there are more than a few controversial blog posts about. So rather than go through those blog posts, I'll just post links to some interesting ones in the show notes. So typically what pair programming looks like, at least in the positions that I'm hiring for, is we bring a candidate in and we have two sections, and the two sections will be with different interviewers. So you get two different perspectives on a candidate's abilities. Typically one of the interviewers, at least for the positions that I'm hiring for, will work with a candidate to solve a real problem on the system. So given that candidates don't actually have any experience on our specific system, that's really about how quickly do they pick up on the core concepts that we're dealing with, and how easily are they able to navigate a code base that they've never seen before, and what type of questions do they ask, how are they familiar with the general web stack that we're dealing with. The second part is a more open-ended thing, where we typically ask candidates to write a small program from scratch. And that's the skills that you need going into that are just simply basic familiarity with your language of choice. You can use any language and any editor for that task, and you can use Google, and you can ask questions, but it turns out that it's a good way to assess whether very, very strong candidates will get through that very quickly and start building more on that, and weaker candidates will struggle with the basics even of their chosen language.
Yeah, the problem is that if the candidate is too good, maybe then you have a problem, because he's gonna go to a company that he's gonna like learn so much from you if he knows more than you. For example, if you prepare a program, a small program that he knows very well, and he's able to do something and impress you, it means that you are not so good. So he's gonna be very strong later in the next kind of phase, no, in the step of the interview. He's gonna say, "Hey guys, sorry, but you suck, and I am much more better than you. I can do everything you need, and so I'm gonna ask you for a quite higher salary, than the other people." I agree with this that we said about the methodology. At the end, I think it's difficult to find the right one, but I read some time ago about one that is that you propose to the person to bring a program that he has developed. For example, he open source project in GitHub, and then you work together in that a new feature that he wants to create for his new program. So you are pair programming, but he's teaching you about his own program. So he's gonna tell you, "Oh, I am gonna add the test, I'm gonna do this with this issue that I received." So he is in the best position. He's gonna do this with everything he knows. It's nothing strange, no? And he's gonna choose even the task. So you only asking him like, "Okay, just show me how you work in a real environment," no? Because later when he's in the company, maybe you ask him for using this kind of laptop, but he's gonna install his own tools. So you want to see his tools and how he deal with us, and you can learn a lot from this. So you are not giving him pressure about something that he doesn't know, because maybe this candidate, he doesn't know very well Ruby or Node.js or something that you are asking for, but maybe he's very good in Scala, and he can show you and teach you, "Oh, just modifying this file, this is better." And maybe you say, "Oh wow, I want to migrate my platform to this language." So I think that that's another kind of interview. But
yeah, that's another kind of interview, definitely. I think one of the reasons that we do tend to ask, you can use Scala if you need to for the pair program. You can really choose whatever language you want, but we do generally ask you to perform a similar task, and because we're asking for a similar task, it does it lets us compare across interviewers, because we can look back at our experience and remember people who moved forward very quickly with the task and people who really got stuck on the basics of manipulating the programming language.
Yeah, I agree.
So what is it like in Spain? I mean, I think I'm relatively familiar with Japan and the U.S., but what's your thoughts on how like hiring engineers works in Spain?
Well, I think that the biggest difference right now, I don't know USA, but I know Japan of the kind of recruiters that they came to me. I think that Japan is terrible. He really terrible. You have so many in the LinkedIn, they are coming, all of them, and you have 50 guys that they are telling you about position that they pay you so much, but nobody have they never read your profile, so they don't know what you do.
I think this is fairly similar to the US, actually.
Really? Okay. So in Japan, I don't know because I don't know why. I don't know why because, but it's terrible. Okay, it's very bad idea here to go through a recruiter. I mean, you can go, of course, but I don't know. My experience with them is that. But did you read my or I met once I met one guy that this was quite smart, but we met in a kind of hotel. And he asked me about, well, he told me more about the positions because it was a huge company that bought another one, so they had a lot of money in the moment, and they were searching like 150 employees for doing a new department. And he said, I asked him, no, like, okay, I like a lot about this company that you are saying that it's amazing, it's all good words, positive things, but I asked him like, okay, but why do you like me? Why do you think that I am a good candidate? What have you seen in my resume? And he said, over here, and nothing. He didn't point to nothing. So he didn't even read my profile. He just wanted someone who knew a little bit to go to company. And it was like, okay, I got because he didn't even understood what means to be a startup and why they buy the companies, and he didn't have any kind of idea of a business, and he was just like, okay, I want someone to move to another company. Okay, so my experience was very bad, but I was not searching nothing, but I wanted the experience to have kind of a recruiter. What is gonna happen? Okay.
Yeah, my experience with recruiters has been I have talked to recruiters in the past, and they have occasionally forwarded me moderately interesting positions, but I think it's gotten sort of, I've also gotten the sense, when you go through a bad interview and the interviewer, you leave with the feeling that the interviewers didn't really get who you were and what your skills are. That's often been my experience with recruiters, where we'll have like an hour-long conversation about my resume and my skills, but I leave with the impression that they still don't really understand who I am and don't really understand what type of a company I would like to work for.
But that's very bad, because these guys, they are coming to you telling you that you can have a huge salary, but the truth is that you don't have all the skills for that position. Okay, so that's waste of time for you, for him, and for everybody. But what they are charging is for meeting you with the company. If you want to go to the office, like, okay, but they are already like kind of moving people. So that's the problem. Okay, that's the problem. They have so many people moving, and it's like maybe easy for them, so they don't really care so much. Okay, and now let's go talk to Spain. In Spain, It's completely different. It's completely different. If a recruiter, he's not good, he doesn't have real context. He doesn't really care about what you want, what you decide. He goes with you, all the kind of steps, and he finds the right position for you. He's not gonna get anyone. In Spain, everybody who is a bit good, they are already in a company. So if you want to find someone who is good, you are gonna have to pay a lot, or that's impossible. It's crazy. If you look at to some places that they offer jobs. Well, right now you can find a very, 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 very good deals, very good positions. In the last kind of 4 or 5 years, it has improved so much. And right now you go there, and the recruiters, they know you very well. They have reference. They know that you know these persons. They don't go to you, to the LinkedIn, and they spam to you. They send you a formal message to your account, and they explain what they want. Everything. I am really surprised, but I talk with my friends, and they say me the same. Sergio, ratio, it has changed. Right now they are paying well because, of course, they don't. Right now the companies, they don't want to have the headquarters in places like London, that they have to pay 3 times or at least 2 times the salary that they pay in Spain. So, and in Spain the quality is the double than other places. So they know very well that Spain is like kind of Vietnam for Asia. Yes. So they know very well that.
Okay, wait. Spain is like okay. Go back and explain how Spain is like Vietnam.
Yeah. Right now, okay, in the past it was like India. Everything in the software development was going to India, and then they moved to something that was Vietnam. Vietnam is a country in Asia that is more international, so they are moving a lot of projects from all the world to Vietnam right now. Of course, they are still in India because it's very cheap, but right now it's Vietnam. And what happens in Europe, or even companies in USA, they are kind of outsourcing to Spain, because Spain for them is cheap, and the people, they have very good knowledge about the technologies. Right now, if you talk English in Spain, well, you have very good opportunities, But because also the recruiters and everybody, they are searching it very like carefully. They are not like it's completely different experience here in Spain, completely different.
That's interesting. Like, I know at least in Japan, a lot of English-speaking foreigners come to Japan, and their first job will be as like an English teacher.
Yeah.
And one way that a lot of people get out of English teaching is by going to recruitment companies. So I wonder, and that's just because it's a job that can command a high salary, and that you can do with limited Japanese but native English ability, and that it's relatively easy to get hired for. So maybe our next conversation should be how to hire good recruiters.
Okay, let's talk about it later.
All right. Is anything else you wanted to end with?
No, I think it's fine. I think that this is the kind of feeling about how to manage a situation like this, but it's gonna be always very personal, very like the feeling you have with the other person and how it's gonna fit in a company. Yeah. So good luck.
Good luck
for both.
Good luck to everybody. All right. So that was Harajuku Data Lake, episode 6. So don't forget to rate and subscribe. We have a Twitter account now. It's HJDL space. And yeah, check us out. Please follow. And Sergio, I didn't know you had a brother.
Oh, yeah, I have one. He's a CTO of a company.
Wow. All right, cool. Talk to you next week.
See you.